So I'm gonna do some intros for you. I'll pass you the mic, and then we'll be off to the races.
Love it.
So today we have Rand Fishkin of SparkToro, who's here to present on the biggest marketing trends of 2024. Rand, I think, needs very little introduction. I got, my start listening to Rand, Whiteboard Fridays, Moz was the place. And, I've read the book, Lost and Founder. I know you've had your roller coaster ride, and it's just so fantastic to have Rand Fishkin here today. Rand is the co-founder and CEO of SparkToro, makers of fine audience research software, and indie game developer Snack Bar Studio. He's dedicated his professional life to helping people do better marketing through his writing, videos, speaking, and his book, Lost and Founder. Definitely check it out. When Rand's not working, he's usually cooking a fancy meal for the love of his life, author Geraldine. Rand, the mic and floor is all yours.
Very kind of you, Bernard. And Amanda, thank you both for having me. Thanks to Clearscope. This is yeah, should be a great time. So I've got a lot to get through, and I'm gonna share my screen, which I believe everyone can now see. And we're going to talk about these big marketing trends in 2024. One thing I was going to say, Bernard or Amanda, the Q&A for folks who want to ask questions during, I won't be addressing them live in real time, but after the presentation, we should have about, I'm hoping between 15, 20 minutes, maybe 10 minutes if I run a little long, to answer questions. So please feel free to leave those in the Q&A. Amanda will point you to the right place. All right, so I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I'm going to talk about AI. I don't think AI is a very big trend. In fact, I think the overwhelming majority of changes that AI was going to bring to marketing, it has already brought to marketing, because what AI is today is mostly machine learning, and machine learning is what powers all of the ranking algorithm systems. Google uses machine learning, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Reddit, YouTube, Aura, TikTok, every single one of these platforms leverages machine learning, and it certainly transformed the marketing world, all of the ad platforms too. But that happened like 12 years ago. What's happening today is something else. And that is a disappearing of the effectiveness and the competitive advantage that all the marketing strategies and tactics that I and everybody else in digital marketing have been talking about for the last 15 years. Those don't work no more, at least not like they used to. I'm talking about strategies like, the performance advertising barrage, which lots of people use, the SEO and content flywheel. That's what I used at Moz, right? That's what powered Whiteboard Friday and all those things. The influencer marketing takeover, where you just take a consumer brand, usually get a ton of influencers to talk about it, post about it. The big splashy media launches that you used to see, around Super Bowl sponsorships and billboard takeovers of cities, all these different things, right? Go viral on social channels. That doesn't work anymore. Some of these are still individually viable tactics that can be used in a broader campaign, a holistic campaign, but none of them work the way they used to. They are not a competitive advantage the way they used to be. What happened here? Like what went sideways? Well, first off, big thing is the death of not MarTech, which continues to get investment, although MarTech as a category in software as a service has been declining for 5 years in a row, which is kind of wild to see. Basically, advertising spend is going up, but investments in MarTech have gone down. And I think that's a big part of that is the trackability, right? So third-party cookies only available in Chrome. Google just announced yesterday, day before yesterday, that they're going to continue to offer third-party cookies, but they're the only browser that does. Everyone else removes them by default. So this number, 49%, 48%, that's what you can track with third-party cookies, except that for ad blockers, which we'll talk about in a second. First-party cookies too. These are also getting less effective and less accurate. The ability for you to say, oh, this visitor came to my site and they came back again, and here's all the content that they viewed. Those type of cookies that you get from a login, those are also getting less effective for a variety of technical and legal reasons. Users are manually blocking way more of these. You can see the do not track enabled on lots of browsers, including Chrome. So that 49%, 50% of people who use Chrome, well, 27% of them have enabled a do not track. And ad blockers, which again, a huge number of people use, almost 1 billion of the world's 3.5 billion internet users use ad blockers now. We're probably crossed the billion mark at this point. They don't just block ads. They block all of the tracking techniques all of our companies and all of the MarTech providers use as well. Multi-device journeys are now standard, which means, you know, if I grab my phone, I visit you on my desktop, on my laptop, on my wife's computer, those journeys are not all linked together and much harder to link together. And you might be thinking to yourself, oh, Rand, it's no problem. I'm using browser fingerprinting because I'm in the United States, but not in California where it's against the law. And I would say, well, friends, that is very rare on this planet. It is very rare that the browser fingerprinting that you see or what you're allowed to do with something like a, does anybody here use retention.com? You folks familiar with that one? That's the one where, I don't know if you've been to a website like, what's a good example? I think IKEA might be using them. So you go to IKEA's website, at least in the United States, you go to IKEA's website. No, sorry, not IKEA. I think it's Adidas. And you don't put in your email, right? You don't sign up for anything. But then later you get an email from them saying, oh, you know, here's your whatever discount code for a pair of shoes. And you think to yourself, gosh, I guess I must have signed up for Adidas. No, you didn't. Retention.com just browser fingerprint connected your computer to your email address through varieties of systems, but then gave your email to, or your expected email to Adidas. Sometimes you'll get these even if you didn't visit because it's not always perfectly tracked there. I think a lot of marketers have forgotten how easy it used to be to justify investments of all kinds. Content and SEO is a great example, but this could be true in the advertising world too, which, you know, you could look at your analytics, you could see, oh, I rank number 12 for buy roses. Gosh, if I ranked number 1, I would have about 40 times the traffic and conversions. So let me just invest in that. But, you know, Google has learned that their monopoly power is untouchable. They can do whatever they want, like answer queries directly in the SERPs and take content from you, use it in their AI overviews. And so we did a study this year with Datos. I published this recently for folks who haven't checked it out. There's a link to it. Looking at the EU and the US, and essentially, you know, we're close to 2/3 of all, we're probably actually over 2/3 because we are not able to get, obviously, voice answers, and we're not able to get the mobile app searches, which have a higher percentage. So close to 2/3 of all searches end without a click. They are 0-click searches. What that basically means is, you know, if I search for the best rice for risotto, which this is an incorrect answer. I don't know if anybody has actually made risotto with arborio. It's fine. It's not terrible, but it's not going to give you what you get, an aged cannaroli. And you can see in here, they're pulling from it, but then anyway, very annoying to me. The percent of clicks is rising on the paid ads, right? The sponsored listings. So that has been going up over time. And you do get keyword data from that if you're willing to pay, unless you use Google's Performance Max sort of AI campaign system, which I'm not sure I recommend. The percent of clicks is declining on the organic, right? Like the kitchens ranking there. And the percentage of searchers who are satisfied by what Google is surfacing to just give you that instant quick answer, that keeps going up. So again, this is one of those things where you used to be able to track it, and marketing tech used all sorts of data from keywords and from search rankings and from traffic and the landing pages that they came to. All that stuff was gold. Now it's getting hard. Running ads without getting scammed, without getting taken advantage of. This is nearly a full-time job. I think there's a ton of marketers, probably plenty of you on this webinar, whose work entails a lot of digging deep into your ad spend and making sure that you're not getting taken for a ride by the platforms. Because I find this just remarkable. I don't think this could work in any other sector of the economy. Meta will not notify you when the system overcharges you. So it sort of knows, it recognizes like, oh, SparkToro, we overcharged them by 20% last month. They keep that money unless you get in touch with them and report the issue and show them where it happened. Dang. I mean, okay, I guess that's one way to increase your revenue. And infuriatingly, Google kind of learned from this and was like, oh, we're going to change our policy and also make it so that you have to contact us. Google used to do more automated refunds. They still do a little bit, but they used to do more automated refunds. And now they're like, nah, let's make them find the problem and get in touch with us. It's just infuriating. It feels like someone should go after them for fraud for this kind of stuff to me, but what do I know? Okay, big takeaways on the death of trackable MarTech. Yes, ad tech and marketing tech is less trackable and less reliable than years past. I would make sure that you are building and testing your own models and not relying exclusively on what third parties are telling you, especially the platforms who have a huge interest and stake in you spending more with them. Second, it's really easy to overspend, fraud, misleading attribution, all of the automatic opt-in to programs like Performance Max. It is critical to be auditing your ads on a regular basis and having someone who can manually file complaints on your behalf. Otherwise, you're almost certainly spending a lot more than you should. If you rely on ads that use third-party cookies, so everything outside of Apple's ecosystem, I think in the next few years, you're going to see a big shakeup, including potentially higher prices, because those third-party cookies continue to shrink in their efficacy and reach. And that means that the targeting will be less accurate. And so you will be sort of more shotgun approach. And that probably means everyone is going to be competing for the same ad inventory and units, which drives up prices. All right, let's talk about the rise of dark traffic. Did I mention that this presentation is going to be not quite as hopeful as one might think? Until the end, friends, when I'm going to turn things around for you. Okay, so let's talk about the rise of dark traffic. This is on the left here. This is a video that I put on LinkedIn. It did fine, right? Got some nice engagement. And this is how people often hear about SparkToro. They hear about us on a LinkedIn post. Someone posts a YouTube video of themselves using SparkToro. Sometimes we've seen some people post TikToks of them using SparkToro. They might hear about us on a webinar like this one, or a podcast, or via social post. Great. And then the next thing they do is they search Google for our brand name. So, after this webinar, some people who are listening to this might go and check out SparkToro and be like, yeah, what's Rand up to these days? I want to check out his new company. It's been around for a few years, but that will show up in our analytics as organic. Or if they type in the site, right, sparktoro.com, it'll show as direct. It wasn't direct. It wasn't organic. That's just how the analytics marks it. What actually happened was they heard about us in these places where we are present. And the problem with this is both direct and organic are hiding a ton of the real sources that send you traffic and referrals and visits and conversions, right? So you think that, oh, I should invest more in organic search. Or maybe if you look at direct, you go, I don't know what to invest in, or I'm going to invest more in brand. Oh, great. You know what? That is misattributing where the attention is coming from. So I looked in our analytics and 76% of our visits come from direct. 13%, the largest next one, is organic search, which is almost all brand. We rank for almost nothing. I know a lot of people think of me as an SEO person, but with SparkToro, I've done almost no SEO. But only 29% of those visits land on the homepage. How are they getting to those deep pages directly? there must be something even more devious at stake here or at work here. Are people really typing in or bookmarking these long URLs? No way. I don't believe it for a second. I'll tell you what's going on. So we ran an experiment with Steve from Really Good Data and looked at the referral data that is passed from all of these different platforms. TikTok, 100% of all referrals that come from, if you're on your phone, you're in the TikTok interface and you click on someone's profile and then you follow the link to their whatever link tree and go to their website, zero referral data. They cannot tell that it came from TikTok. WhatsApp, 100% hidden. Discord, 100% hidden. Mastodon, 100% hidden. Slack, all those B2B Slack communities that send you traffic. I guarantee if you're in B2B, you're probably getting talked about in a bunch of B2B Slacks or internal company Slacks, and that is all hidden. Facebook Messenger, for some reason, mostly hidden. Instagram, somewhat hidden. LinkedIn, somewhat hidden, and a few others. If any of these sites or apps send you traffic, your analytics will report those visits as direct. Total misattribution. So we graphed this all out. Steve from Really Good Data did a wonderful job, and you can check out the report on dark social on SparkToro's website. But insanely frustrating to realize that this is going on. Also weird that a small percent of YouTube and Reddit and Pinterest are also doing this. So some takeaways from this. If you have moved away from social media investments, which a lot of folks have, especially in B2B, because you can't see referral traffic coming from it and you can't attribute that traffic, you're probably losing out. You're losing out to teams who realize the dark social problem and focus on their reach and engagement over attribution. I know we called these vanity metrics for forever, but that's probably what you're going to have to invest in, because if you need to track and show your boss, your client, your team, your progress, those vanity metrics are the only things that you have. And you can show time series and sort of A/B testing, like, hey, we turned it off. We didn't do social sharing this week. Let's look at what happens for the next 3 weeks. Hey, we did a lot of social sharing this week. Let's look at what happens for the next 3 weeks. Oh, okay. It looks like the lift is 20, 15%, whatever it is. Investing in these sources that send you indirect or unattributable traffic doesn't have to mean untrackable, right? You can build these systems to measure and see the results of dark traffic on your business bottom line. All right, let's talk about marketing attribution. I've been talking about attribution sort of opaquely and indirectly, but I want to address it head on. So when folks across the board, big companies, small companies, test turning off their ads, Procter & Gamble cutting hundreds of millions of dollars, Chase cutting their spend, Uber cutting their spend, eBay cutting their spend, or most famously Airbnb cutting their marketing, their advertising. When he says marketing, he means their advertising, down to 5% of its previous number. Same results, or better results in some cases. What is going on here? Is it really the case that these large advertisers and these big stories and tons of small and medium stories that you can read from all across the web, is it really the case that when they shut off their ads, they see these increases? How could that be true? Shouldn't ads have a real impact, especially since these platforms that they're talking about, Google, Meta, Apple, Amazon ads, they're supposed to be measurable. They get back to you with data. They show you data saying this many people click, this many people saw the ad, this many people who eventually converted had been exposed to the ad. What's happening? I'm going to try and answer this with a story that I think does a nice job of this. It's I didn't come up with it. This is the parable of the pizzeria, but I like to tell it anyway. So this pizzeria owner in Milan, she owns Pizzeria Sevilla. It's been around since just after World War II. And she wants to sell more pizzas. So she decides to hire 3 neighborhood scamps, kids from around the neighborhood, to go distribute flyers, a green one, a white one, and a red one. They all have discount codes on them, different discount codes on them, but for the same amount. And she gives them to 3 different kids. And after a month, she looks, and the kid with the green flyer is crushing it. Like, he's just bringing in so much business for the pizzeria. So she fires the other 2 kids, and she says, hey, kid, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Because, half the people or more that come into this place, they're using your green flyer. you're just amazing. 6 months later, she talks to her accountant. The accountant sits down. She's like, well, the pizzeria's business is up. It's up about 10, 15%. You're getting more customers, but so many people are using the discount code that your revenue is actually down. The pizzeria owner goes, how can this possibly be? I know that we're getting half of our customers, our new customers are coming in with the green flyer. This kid is drumming up business for us. I don't understand. So what does she do? Well, one morning she puts on a disguise, right? She's quite dramatic. She's Italian. Puts on a disguise and she follows the kid. And she sees the kid, he takes the stack of green flyers, walks out of the restaurant, and whoosh, he ducks into an alley around the corner from the pizzeria. And then anybody who's walking by, he just watches, and then he jumps out if they look like they're going to the pizzeria and hands them the green flyer. Because why would you work hard to make more sales when you could just take credit for sales that were already going to happen? AKA Facebook and Google's motto. What Facebook and Google know, and Apple and Amazon too, what they know better than anyone else because of the clickstream data that they have is where people go on the web before they buy from you, before they buy from anyone. And so they can make sure that their ad units show along that journey and then take credit for the conversions that were already going to happen. I believe that the attribution that all the fancy models, econometrics models, MMM, all that kind of stuff that we have built were always a lie, at least a little bit. And as marketing has gotten less trackable and the platforms own more of the data, that lie has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And that is why you see all these stories of being able to shut off your ads and get the same or better results. So what's the takeaway here? Test shutting off your ads. If you don't turn them off for a month or 3 months and see what happens, you will never know what the incremental contribution of that ad spend is. And if you're worried about the risk of this, do it geographically, do it in a smaller region, do it for a subset of your ads one at a time, and see what happens. Because I promise you, you are not getting value from 100% of the ads that you run. All right, number 4, another big trend that's going on, and we can feel it throughout the marketing universe, especially those of you who might have lost a job and had to get a new one, or have seen how much harder it is as an agency or consultant to get business in the last 9 to 12 months, how hard it is to keep customers. And that is the end of the rising tide. So you can see that the number of users worldwide was growing at a very steady rate, right? The internet was growing. And then when the pandemic hit, we essentially got almost all the growth that we're going to get. And now it has flattened out. You can see that the growth rate has flattened out. And this is true across almost every type of medium, right? The amount of traffic that Google is sending out to the web, the growth of Facebook, their daily active users, right? That growth rate is now pretty darn flat. Online media spending has gotten much flatter. This was 2022 was sort of that, big bump from the pandemic, and 2023, whoop, dropping way back down. Digital ad growth by company last year, Google and Meta grew 5% and 3%. Very small. Walmart, the largest one, and Instacart, that's because they didn't have ads before 2021. So, this is a little bit misleading. I think it's a different kind of world than the 20 years prior, where everything was just up and to the right. The internet itself was growing so fast. And so this slowdown means that we as marketers have to talk to our executives, talk to our bosses, our teams, our clients about the balance between growth and profitability. Because for a long time, we've been trained to just invest in unprofitable growth, right? Put dollars against it, the growth will come, and then, whatever, the investors will essentially back that growth and will monetize the profits of it in the future. Now that can really backfire on you. The second one is the hard to measure channels. Those would be things like PR, organic content marketing. Organic social, absolutely. Influencer marketing, brand marketing. Those sources of influence are the least competitive, but the most affordable, most effective ways to reach customers. It's a tough paradox, and it's our job to have that conversation with leadership and explain the phenomena that are happening that are causing this. I would argue that no two companies should have the same marketing mix, right? If you're copycatting your competitors and doing exactly what they do, investing in the channels based on some template, you're not going to win, right? You're not going to win. Where you win is where you find the competitive advantage by providing unique value in a place that your competitors are not. And that is harder to do. All right, number 5, my last big trend, the rise of zero-click everything. You've probably heard, so my colleague Amanda Natividad coined the phrase zero-click content and zero-click marketing. Zero-click world is essentially caused by LinkedIn wanting to keep you on LinkedIn, right? Their algorithm prioritizes posts that contain, videos and images and do not have a link out, which is why the link in comments thing is so common. Facebook wants to keep you on Facebook, which is why links on Facebook have died. They died 10 years ago. Instagram wants to keep you on Instagram. They don't have any links at all, right? You have to click on a profile to get a link out of there. And of course, Google, right, wants to keep you on Google. And that is why when you search for so many things, right, an izakaya in Seattle, well, they'll keep me on Google Maps. I search for the best new video games. Look at this. Google has this huge box that answers the questions. Where are they getting that from? They're just scraping it and aggregating from the results right below. But why send you to Kotaku or IGN or PC Gamer when they could just keep you on Google and get you to perform another search by clicking on any of those and then reap the benefits of that additional search? Real estate prices in Seattle. Look, they're just taking the snippet, the relevant snippet from Redfin and putting that right in the results, which I'm sure many of you have done this. You do a search and you think, this is so convenient. Well, it's great for you, not so great for publishers. Every single platform, again, we did a study on this, prioritizes native content through their algorithms and systems. Google, YouTube, Facebook, Reddit, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Pinterest, you name it. They all prioritize. The only exception to this, the only one that does not give an inherent bias to unlinked content is Mastodon, which I love Mastodon, but it didn't really take off. I think they're sitting around 1.5 million users and not growing very much. So what's the delta here? I measured this. This example is from Facebook, but I did this on LinkedIn too. Here's one with a link, same content, no link, video natively embedded, and usually I get about 10x the reach. 10x the reach, 10x the engagement, 10 times the number of people sort of watching the video or consuming the content. It's tough, right? It's tough to decide, do I want 1/10 the visits or do I want 10 times the reach? Usually I bias to 10 times the reach. And every single network, works in this way. The thing that I'm worried about and that I have seen, TikTok did this test last year where they started taking away the link in bio so that no one could ever leave. So I asked this question, like, does anybody still send out traffic? And so SparkToro uses a clickstream data provider for a big portion of our data set. To provide audience research, and that is Datos. Datos is a great little company out of New York. I'm friends with the guy who runs it, Eli Goodman, who I think the world of. And Datos kindly provided us with data on the top 170 sort of traffic referrers on the web, people who send traffic to other places. And so that is what you're seeing here. You can see Google, Microsoft and Bing, YouTube, Facebook, Reddit. You start to get into the social ones over here, and it's tiny little percentages. Search, right? Google and Bing, and to a certain extent, DuckDuckGo, they're sending the overwhelming majority, 70-ish% of all traffic is sent by those sources. Everybody else, not so much. And even worse than that, even worse than the overwhelming domination of search as the referrer. If you look at referrals from the top sites to other top sites, right? The most 170 most popular sites on the web, you can see that the dominant platforms are sending less and less traffic to the long tail. Essentially, more and more of the internet's traffic is being driven to Google itself, YouTube, Reddit, Instagram, LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera. So, I studied this panel data about where people visit and where referrals come from, and I had this disconnect where I looked and I was like, oh, wait a minute, referrals, traffic referrals, that is not influence. That's not where our focus as marketers should be. It would be like saying, oh, I really care about the highway off ramps and not the highway itself. All the action is happening on the platform. So I took all of the websites and I categorized them by, whether they're an e-commerce site, financial, games, government EDU, health. I did this manually. I would use an AI to do it for, millions of sites, but I did it for just these top few hundred myself, put them into 13 classifications, and then came up with this pie chart, which I think is really instructive. Because if you take a look at where people spend time and energy, it's not search. Search might send 70% of traffic, but it's only 10% of where people spend time, what people visit. The action is happening in social and productivity. Productivity would be things like, office and email. Email is a big one in productivity. News sites, e-commerce sites, video and audio, financial. 90% of visits aren't spent in search. So if you are focusing exclusively on traffic referrals in your analytics, you are stuck with a really sad amount of channel diversity, right? This is not what marketers should be doing. This is biasing you. If you're looking in your analytics and you're looking at your acquisition funnel, you are always going to be biased to channels that show you referral traffic rather than places where people spend time and energy and where they learn what to do. When you try to prove acquisition via referral, you will become Google's fool. And this is why. Because all of the things that happen in these categories, right, in news and productivity and social, right, I learn about things in these places. Maybe I learn about, a better kind of rice for risotto, and I read about it on, Bon Appetit. And then what do? I go to Google and I search for it if I'm really interested in it. And then who gets credit in the analytics? Yeah, of course, Google. There's sort of like a toll booth on the internet that takes this charge and refuses to tell destinations where people came from. If you want to win at social, a big takeaway, right? Social being the largest category here, social, right? 20.75% of all traffic and time spent online. Well, the only way to do that is zero-click content, because you can see they just don't send referring traffic. All these sites combined send a seventh of what Google does. You've got to play to the platform's algorithmic bias, as I showed you, which is zero-click. If you want to determine where you should spend time, right, which specific platforms, but also which individual sources of influence on the networks, or which websites, which news sites, which places to do PR, places to do outreach, places to do co-marketing and branding, places to do ad sponsorships, webinars to be on, podcasts to be on, all that stuff. You have to do some audience research. You've got to figure out what your audience pays attention to, right? If I'm looking for graphic designers and that's who I'm trying to attract to my product, well, I should probably take a close look at Behance and Pinterest, and apparently LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a place where a lot of these people spend time. That is unusual compared to the average internet user. So my colleague Amanda, who's our VP of marketing, has this great post about doing zero-click content, and she has had an extraordinary amount of success with this. It's not that nothing she posts is ever inclusive of a link or contains a referral back, just that only a small percentage is, and everything else nudges sort of brand awareness and behavior. She's leveraging the platforms in the way that their algorithms are friendly to her to give people the inspiration to eventually come and check out the product, the service, the website. All right, I have one more little one, which I think we have a couple minutes for. Number 5.5, it's not quite a trend. It's almost an anti-trend. So, obviously, newspapers, print, radio, television, all of these mediums are falling off a cliff. You can see share of TV advertising falling. You can see that Twitter is going down the drain even faster now than in this graph from last year. Or Google organic search going down. Twitter, Facebook and Instagram's advertising reach is dropping. But somehow, one channel alone stands above the rest, and that is email. So I took all of the studies from over the last 19 years. 2005 was the first data point that I was able to find that had a credible source that talked about what is the average open rate and click-through rate of all the millions of people who use our email service. And look at these numbers. Absolutely incredible. You will not find anything else like this. Everything else in the marketing world suffers from what Andrew Chen in the early 2000s coined the law of shitty click-through rates, which essentially, the tactic starts high, but then it falls down. Maybe, I guess I'm mirrored, so it would be this way for you. Okay. And 20 years of doomsaying, everyone's saying, oh, the kids aren't using email. Well, guess what? As soon as kids get to be adults and they get jobs, they all use email too. And so email open rates have remained consistent. By the way, this jump to 34%, that's actually not a jump in open rate. It's just because of how Apple counts an open in their email app on iPhones and iOS. So my big takeaway from this is like, I would make email one of your primary channels. Always. I would always be driving people to your email list and nudging the non-sale conversions to those lists. I think investments in other channels probably should come with risk assessment. Like as an example, Twitter might die entirely. That would not surprise me at all. I think, Elon choosing to give one presidential campaign $45 million a month, like you can see that in the stats on Twitter that it brought this sudden thing about. And then him, I think yesterday, day before, he announced like, no, I'm not going to do it. Wait, I didn't say I was partisan, that kind of thing. It's just this strange, like, I don't know what's going to happen with Twitter. I think that platform is in a lot of trouble. They have very inconsistent leadership and problematic place, and it's been declining dramatically, as we all know. The EU and US might indeed shut off TikTok. I mean, technically, a law is already passed to ban TikTok in another, 150, 200 days. Doesn't look like they're selling. I don't know. Maybe the lawsuits will keep them around for a while longer, but TikTok may go away. Could Microsoft end linking out on LinkedIn entirely? I think that's possible. Other platforms have tested it. My point here is don't put all of your eggs in one of these baskets unless it's email. Email is the basket that I would feel safest about. I would also be thinking creatively about potential acquisitions. As a marketer, you might talk to your boss and be like, hey, you should get this newsletter, this little blog, this guy who has a Substack on the M&A team's radar, because we might be able to pick up a tremendous amount of value from purchasing someone else's property that has a powerful email list to reach our audience. This might be a much better use of capital than a lot of the ad spend you're probably throwing dollars at now. Just saying. Okay, I have a bonus couple of predictions. I know I didn't talk about AI. This is my prediction. Humans still better at anything related to actual content production. That's not because AI can't do it. AI can do a mediocre job, but like the minimum bar for content, right, has changed over time. It used to be like better than what's on page 2 of Google, better than what BuzzFeed's doing, better than what the big tech platforms can zero-click answer. but now it's sort of better than what Chat GPT can create. That's the bar, the bottom of the bar. And so I think we have to do better. AI has some advantages. They can do more. They can do it faster. They're good at spelling and grammar. Human beings are really good at these things. I guarantee in every sector, every field, someone is going to invest in these and they're going to win because they're better at them. My argument would be I would not put time and effort and energy into AI produced content. AI assisted content, just like AI assisted programming, great, love it. I do it too. Threads is probably going to crush Twitter. I don't know if you've seen, but Threads is growing rapidly. They are at 175 million users right now. I have about 10 times the number of followers on Twitter that I do on Threads, but I get the same reach or more on Threads. And that is, a result of how Twitter's algorithm works and how much of Twitter is not active on there. Of the 500,000 people who follow me on Twitter, my guess is only about 50,000 of those still use the platform on any regular basis. Whereas Threads, almost all of them are truly active. Almost everyone who signed up for Threads still uses it. And at 175 million users, they only have 2 years before they're going to cross what Twitter has. Barnacle SEO is back, baby. Super back. You can see Reddit taking over the search results, YouTube taking over the video results, and you can see these 16 companies that sort of dominate all of Google's rankings and own them. What does that mean? Well, I think that means if you want to appear here, just use YouTube. Stop trying to fight to be above the video. Just give in, use YouTube, build your channel there, nudge people over to your stuff. It's kind of like the zero-click content thing on a LinkedIn or a Twitter or a Reddit or a Facebook or Threads. I would argue if you want to appear here, you should use Reddit. You can do some really clever marketing on Reddit, and plenty of people already are. I'm not talking about astroturfing. I'm just talking about using that platform authentically in good ways and getting your brand in front of those folks. Most of the folks out there, I think, are searchers out there are really mistrustful of sort of the affiliate-ridden, private equity-owned media properties, and so that is driving a lot of search to Reddit. You can see that appending Reddit to Google queries is just going crazy. So I would use a powerful domain rather than trying to force your site's way into the systems. If Twitter ever drove value for your marketing, probably a good time to get on Threads, my friends. Early users there get huge outsized benefits. I saw that by being an early adopter on Twitter, whatever that was, 12 years ago, I got a ton of benefit. Like Twitter's algorithm kept recommending me to other marketers who joined, and that was powerful. Threads does the same thing now. Right place, right time, right message, that still works. Fundamentals of marketing haven't changed. It's the technology and the tactics that have changed. So with that, I think we've got about 15 minutes for Q&A. I'm going to stop my screen share, and I think Bernard has got some great questions for me.
I do. First, some commentary. When you were saying like minimum bar content, it really struck a chord with, the idea that you had in Lost and Founder, which really resonated with me, the exceptional viable product, like the death of the MVP. I feel like when you said minimum bar content, I was like, I feel like we're at this like exceptional, like, content. It just needs to be, have this bar, and the bar continues to get raised. And
yeah, and I would say this, which is quality is only one feature of content that gets it lots of distribution and visibility. There are others, which you can see there's a lot of really crappy, low quality content that flies across the internet that gets a ton of exposure. And it is because it triggers something emotionally, or it creates an incentive for other people to share it. And I would lean into those as well, right? That ability to get emotion into your content, emotion nudging into your content, and also creating things for people who are likely to share rather than just, well, I have the absolute best list of all the kinds of risotto rice. Yeah, but do you have a really cool GIF that looks cute and, becomes a meme? meme culture is very powerful in spreading things. That there's 100 other examples of this. So
Totally, totally. Well, I feel like there's a lot of different rabbit holes that we can drop into. We got some questions,
oh great.
and I think that I'm gonna start with this one, even though it was asked like the latest. I think there's a lot of concern about the untrackableness of everything going on with dark social, these different things that are just being closed off from us. So what would you say is the new attribution model in a world where, everything's going private and dark?
I really believe this is so weird, Bernard, but I truly believe that we are in 2024, we are going back to 1964. So in 1964, if you went to an ad agency and you said, hey, I want to increase sales for my, car company, the ad agency would say, great, here's what we're going to do. We're going to run these 3 billboards that we think are the right message at the right time. And we're going to run them in these 3 very similar, demographically similar cities. And then we're going to see which one provides the most lift to dealers in that region, controlled for seasonality. It worked. It worked really well. The 20th century was a time of incredible growth in both marketing and the effectiveness of consumer and business spending. All of us who have become addicted, myself included, right? I'm as guilty of this as anyone. If I were given this webinar 10 years ago, I would be telling you exactly the opposite. I'd be like, those idiots in 1964 had no data. They didn't know what the crap they were doing. That, you should throw them out. You should use you can use machine learning plus an attribution modeling system to basically know exactly which place to spend. That's what I would have told you. And I might have been right, because you could build a decent model in 2012. You really could. We did it at Moz. It was pretty effective. And then every year since, it has gotten less effective because the data is dribbling out, and the ability to get cookies, the rise of ad blockers, the privacy laws, all the things I talked about. And so today you have to measure the same way they did in 1964, which is test and then measure on lift and incrementality.
Yeah, yeah, it's cyclical, right? It's what's old is new and what's new is old. And I think we're going back to the dark ages to a degree. And that brings us to, I think, our second sets of questions. So Mark and Gary asks stuff around the dark social. Why won't Google Analytics, Adobe, and other analytics classify traffic by specific social channel? Is it actually that hard? We get so much direct and unclassified ourselves.
Yeah.
And Gary asks basically the same.
Oh, okay. So it is not hard. It would be very easy for them to do it, but they have a distinct incentive against doing it. And that comes from a bunch of things, right? First off, Adobe or Google, they can't control whether TikTok sends you referral data or not. They don't know that TikTok sent the visit. So I would argue like that's not in their umbrella of things that they could do. But it's not like Adobe or Google is going to TikTok and fighting on your behalf for organic attribution data. They, like everyone else, have an incentive for you to spend more on advertising, which does generally pass referral data. But so the incentives of the platforms are the problem, and their financial incentives are aligned against the trackability of anything that isn't paid. And they have an additional incentive to make it look like paid channels are driving more of the traffic. Also, I want to address, Janice asked this question, do you mean that we're going back to the 1960s advertising marketing campaigns and data analysis is not important? No. Let me be really clear. When I say we're going back to the 1960s way of measuring, right, of measurement. So I think that the 60s had a lot to say in terms of creativity and thoughtfulness about like, how do we resonate emotionally with consumers? Sure. And that might be a fine thing to test too. But what I'm suggesting is that the way we measure is test a campaign, right? So if you, for example, think that getting your content on Reddit and ranking for it, which you'll never be able to see the traffic. Reddit won't report to you, here's how many times your brand came up on our site or whatever. That investment could lead to lift in terms of, number of people who visit your website, people who type in your brand name to Google and search for it, people who sign up for your email newsletter, people who convert to buying whatever it is you have to sell. And that's what I'm suggesting, is that you look time series and campaign based, and you build the right metrics for each investment and then measure against that. Data analysis, still very important. It's just the way we're doing it is not, well, I'm going to throw it all into Google's attribution model and they'll tell me how much Reddit contributed. No, 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 no.
Yeah. Yeah, it is more complicated, but it is, I think, back to the basics, right? I think, are you getting more business? Are these campaigns, right? They're more like campaigns that you do when you try to obviously correlate what you can. So let's jump into this whole world of zero click, right? I think that we have no-click marketing that's happening within the social platforms. We have zero-click searches that are happening with AI overviews and featured snippets. First question comes from Sunny. With increased zero-click searches, is Google less value for brands? As a content strategist, how does content development within the framework of organic viability continue to be an acceptable tactic?
Let's see. I think that the rise of zero-click searches doesn't necessarily mean Google is less valuable for your brand. It could mean that overall, if we were to go back 6 or 7 years in time, maybe it would be true that if we were able to perfectly measure all of this stuff, Google would technically be less of a driver than it is today for all brands combined. That wouldn't surprise me, right? Because internet activity has become much more diverse than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when Google sort of had a stranglehold on everything. I would say, though, don't take aggregate data to mean to drive your decision making, right? So you look at a broad thing like, oh, zero-click searches are way up. Well, let's stop investing in search. That is not the takeaway. The takeaway should be zero-click searches are way up. Are they up for us? Let's go look at whatever, 1,000 of our keywords. There's plenty of SEO tools that'll tell you this. How many of them have instant answers and featured snippets and AI overviews and videos ranking above everything else, all that kind of stuff? Okay, how would we nudge consumer behavior or B2B buying behavior from those zero-click places? Should we use a YouTube video? Should we try and be the instant answer? You know what? Let me show you an example. I think this might be helpful. So like if I do, let's do a search here. Yes, everybody look at my email. That's exciting. Let's do a search here. Oh, the window closed. I guess that is good security on the part of Zoom. So let's go to Google and let's search for best rice for risotto. Okay. If I am Acquarello, right, which is the brand of rice that I think is the best. It's like this Italian aged carnaroli. It makes for a really super creamy risotto. The rice maintains its structural integrity. You can see the rice grains like they're just beautiful. A lot of the fancy Italian restaurants that you might visit, especially in the north of Italy, use Acquarello. And this, I would try and change this answer, not by getting Acquarello's website to rank for this query, but I would say this is a really important query for us to influence. I want to take, let's see, this one. Look at this. Bon appetit. This risotto rice is magnifico. It will probably not surprise you to learn that my favorite rice. So this Bon Appetit editor agrees with me, thinks that Acquarello is the best one. This is the result I would try and rank up. I would not try and use my own thing. And I wouldn't worry about whether I get traffic. I wouldn't worry about whether Bon Appetit gets traffic, because I bet a lot of the behavior is person goes to grocery store or they're shopping online and they're like, oh, I want to make risotto next week. Which one should I buy? And that quick Google search and this result right here is probably getting a lot of arborio sales at the grocery store. And if I'm Acquarello, I want the opposite. So that is the kind of thing that I am suggesting people think about. It's a one-to-one decision. It is not a, oh, zero click is up, I should avoid investing in Google.
Wow. I You blew my mind there, and I think that that connects with Barnacle SEO, where, right? And so I guess my follow-up question to that is that, Bon Appetit is calling out Aquarello. I wish I could pronounce as
No, you got it.
articulately
That's it.
as you.
Aquarello.
And there's spots that discussion boards are holding in the SERP. So if I were Aquarello, how am I going to boost Bon Appetit and have a, Reddit or YouTube strategy to, overcome that
Yeah,
featured
yeah.
snippet?
Totally. Okay. So if you're asking me, how does SEO work today? I'm not a professional SEO anymore. I haven't been in the field for a while, but did you see that Google leaked through the API leak all 14,014 features that they use in their ranking systems? You can go see how Google works. I mean, it doesn't tell you exactly how they're weighted, but we know, for example, this blew my mind. I never knew this, Bernard. All the years I was at Moz, I never knew that Google used mentions of a brand's name on, or an entity's name on YouTube, in the YouTube transcript that they automatically calculate. That is a ranking factor. So if Aquarello is mentioned on a lot of YouTube channels by people who are talking about the best rice for risotto, then guess what? Aquarello is probably going to rank higher. Now, is that a tactic that they should? I don't know if that's a tactic they should. You should consult a professional SEO. Probably people on this call are smarter SEOs than I am and have done it a bunch more. But I'm just saying, like, that would be something I would think about, is going and investigating the leak, finding all the factors, stepping on the gas pedal with the ones that you think are going to have the biggest impact. Obviously, one of those things is probably still pointing some links at Bon Appetit. If Aquarello's not linking to Bon Appetit, well, get that link on there, brother.
Yeah, totally. Well, we're coming up right on the hour. I think there's room for one last question, and that is your 5.5, right? I think what I'm hearing from all of this is that the future of the internet from a digital marketing standpoint is fractured. It's fractured, it's volatile, and you don't know if you spend all this effort building an audience on Twitter, on Facebook threads, on Instagram, it could all just be removed from you. So the recommendation of building your own audience through an email list, I think, is, by far the best way to protect oneself from, just anything that's going on in terms of the future. How would you get started building a list? What are the email marketing services and tools you would suggest that you start with? And how does one actually start building their own list in a world where, again, links to websites and overall traffic is on the down and down, like you just called out?
Yeah, okay. I would, so starting an email list is quite challenging, but the first thing that you have to do is establish who is the list for, who's the audience, what do they deeply want, and what can they not get elsewhere that you can provide them with. So the unique value proposition, you have to think of the email newsletter like a product, right? Essentially, why will this product be successful over other alternatives in the market? What can I make that is unique from all the competitors out there? And then the email itself has to have a consistent schedule and a consistent value that it adds in new ways each time. I'll give you an example. I run this video game studio, right? And I subscribe to a newsletter called Game Discover Co. And every week, Simon Carlos, who runs Game Discover Co., sends me 2 emails that show me what games are doing well on Steam, and then he analyzes why they're doing well. And then he talks about, then he has another newsletter that kind of goes through the big news of the week in the video game space and sort of which studios are doing what, and trends, research reports, all this kind of stuff. I feel like I can subscribe to Simon's newsletter and I know 80% of what I need to know in indie games world. That is a great value prop. if I were making a newsletter today, a new newsletter for the indie video game crowd, right? The developers and studio owners like myself, I would not do what Simon does. You can already get that value somewhere else. What you need is unique value from something else. I might be tempted to do, hey, we're going to do tag and genre analysis every week. And we're going to tell you which tags and genres are up and down. And we're going to show that seasonally compared to the last 10 years of data. Ooh, that's new. That's not something that Simon does with Game Discovery. That could be really cool. You could produce some great charts and graphs. They'd be super shareable. It'd be applicable to a lot. This is what I'm telling you, right? Like, find that unique value, that unique niche, make a product for the people who are going to pay attention and earn them that way, and then distribute portions, sections of your newsletter through zero-click content format. No one's better at this than Amanda Natividad, right? Go follow her on Threads and on LinkedIn, and you will see the incredible things that she does to sort of nudge behavior towards subscribing to the newsletter. And she's in the comments. Well, this is slightly embarrassing. Anyway, yes, thank you. You've been here the whole time, really? Well, there was another Amanda in the comments. How was I supposed to? Oh, I guess one of you has a picture. Okay, well, serves me right for only seeing your orange. Okay, good to know. Orange, very popular color right now. I just think, can you change yourself to slime green? That would be super cool. Have your brat summer in the comments. Okay, friends, I know I've taken up a bunch of your time, but Bernard, what a pleasure it has been to talk to you. I think despite being out of time, I think we got through a ton today, and I really appreciate you and Amanda and Clearscope having me. Just a joy, and obviously all the folks in the audience, thank you so much.
The honor is all ours. It's really, I grew up studying everything that you have to say, and it's truly an honor to have you sharing your wisdom to our audience. So with that, check out SparkToro. I think audience research, ideal customer profiles, target personas, all of this is becoming the new foundation of marketing, right? You got to know where your prospects, where your customers are hanging out. You got to know, what's the right way to message to them. And I do think, increasingly this personalization, this high quality content bar is going to continue to lift up. And people want to find the information where they want to consume the information. I can't think of a better tool and software than SparkToro to make that happen. So check it out. And we will see y'all on another Clearscope webinar. Thank you so much, Rand.
Thanks for having me. Take care.